part is about sustainable energy for all. So in general, so will be like a deep walk in distributed renewable energy, so a specific kind of distributed economy. And then like the second part will be like I'm going to show you some case study related to the guideline that you saw before, so that you will have a clear idea on some case study from distributed renewable energy that you can apply even in your design exercise. So like the content of the first part of the lecture will be about sustainable development, which is not possible without sustainable energy for all. A possible offer model, which is distributed renewable energy. And then what a sustainable product service system can do to support distributed renewable energy. So the fact is that like the scientific community, but even like everyone in the public opinion recognize that sustainable development is not possible without sustainable energy for all. With this sentence, usually we refer to places like Africa where they don't have so much access to energy and so on. But if you can think like about today, about our lecture of today, without energy, it won't be possible to make it. We cannot have the beamer. We cannot have the computer. Maybe you were not even able to come here because you cannot have the train or some transportation that doesn't work without energy. And maybe you cannot even charge your phone. You cannot heat your meal and so on. So a lot of daily activities that we do usually with energy won't be possible without energy. So this happens also in industrialized context. It's not just a matter of low and middle income context. So even though we expect that this situation can happen here, of course, it's more difficult when it happened to Africa and other places. Because you have to consider that around 1 billion people lack access to energy every day. So this fact is that is most, as I say, like sub-Saharan Africa and Asia. And 80% of this is in rural areas. So this means they don't have access to a lot of daily activities that we usually have, like basically education or health and so on. And of them, like further than them, another billion people don't have access to reliable access to energy. So this means that, for example, even in India, they have a lot of big cities with energy connections and so on. No, but the problem is they have a lot of breakout. So in that case, they don't have energy at all, even if access to energy is there. So we have not just to consider like extreme situation, but even everyday life situation can be affected by the lack of energy. So just to give you a dimension, 1 person out of 3, they don't have access to energy. And this also is not just about like electricity in the straight sense, but it means also like energy for cooking. For example, in this case, we have a lot of people, like 2.7 billion people, that access energy through traditional biomass. So this, more than discomfortable, is the fact that it's killing 4,000 people every day because of the fumes. Okay, so we have even on these kind of problems. So it's not just about like the not possibility of accessing services, but it's even like the impossibility of having a safe life. So with these examples, you understand that like the question of sustainable energy is really crucial for sustainable development. Because if you have energy, you can access to cooking facilities, heating facilities, to the water, because you have the energy to pump the water, and you don't have to do it by yourself. Food and medicine can be refrigerated if you have energy. So energy is affecting a lot of related services that are not directly energy, but that are necessary. Energy is necessary to make them possible. So in this sense, like the United Nations as well, the European Commission and all the other institutions are trying now to do something. So for example, there is the Sustainable Energy for All Decade from 2014 to 2024. And they have different objectives, like the energy access for all, so universal energy access, the share of renewable energy, and doubling the energy efficiency. Because even here in Italy, where you have access to energy almost everywhere, the problem is that like the transmission plants, they have a lot of losses of energy. So even in this case, we have access to energy that is guaranteed, but is not really efficient. And so that there are the Sustainable Development Goals, which are 17 until 2030 to be reached. And of course, energy as an important place on this. So the aim is to ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern access to energy for all. But the thing is that we need some promising model to do this, because as you know, like energy is one of the biggest market that we have. It's covering the 70% of our total market, of our total economy. But as for is it now, so in a centralized and non-renewable way of producing it, is not a sustainable one. So it's not an option for everyone. Even though we have energy, rural communities are not reached by energy. Lots of cities have energy, but not in a reliable way. So even though energy is big, it's not like given in the right way, in a sustainable way. So one of the options that have been found is the distributed renewable energy way to give energy. We talked about, like before, about the fact of distributed economy. So this means that like distributed renewable energy means that it's produced in a distributed way, so locally, that we call distributed or decentralized according to the configuration, and it is made from renewable energy resources, so inexhaustible resources. And this can favor the shift from the actual energy system that is centralized and non-renewable to a more sustainable one, which is distributed and based on renewable resources. So we want to move from a centralized distribution of energy to a decentralized and distributed one. So in which there are a lot of people that are producing energy everywhere, and they can use it. And then we will see why this is really promising. And of course, there will be like a variety of a lot of configuration that we can have. Of course, according to the situation, to the context in which we are going to produce. For example, if you have a big city in which the energy network is already there, why to make a new one? We can already use the existing network, but we can produce on the rooftop of different houses, and we can share the energy, instead of make one big center of energy out of the city and to give energy to everyone. Instead, of course, it's different if there is just a village with 3 houses. Why to make a big one? We can make just a small production of energy, maybe in just one of the 3 houses, and they can connect. And then, so one part of the distributed renewable energy is a fact of the structure that is distributed or decentralized. The other fact is that it's based on renewable energy sources. So you have, as you see, we have lots of different resources. It's the geothermal energy, hydro energy, tidal wave, wind, biomass, solar. So we have a lot of different options, because even in this case it's related to the context. If you have a place which like wind is not so much, why to put wind turbine? It's useless. Sun is almost everywhere, even because it depends on the light and not every time on the sun. So it's not the need of full sun days. It can work even if sun is less. The fact of the hydropower maybe is good in a place where a lot of water, where there are like waterfalls and so on, is maybe less indicated in a desert. Okay, so even these things we have really to be careful when we design. Even if we are not technician, we are designer, but we have to take this in consideration. And so in this case, you see, like for now, energy in Africa is covered like a minimum amount of the energy production. But if we consider renewable energy, Africa can be the first one to have resources, really. So this can change really the thing, and can, like sustainable energy for all, can really bring to sustainable development, can move the things. So we have like a system structure that moves from centralized to decentralized and distributed, and a use of resources that came from non-renewable resources and moved to renewable one. So this is what we mean with the distributed renewable energy. So they are set up as a small-scale generation plant, and usually who produces is the same person who is going to use the energy. Then they are based on inexhaustible resources, so that are resources that are renewable, so they can be reproduced every time forever. And they are easy to install, maintain, and manage. And this also is another part of the thing, because they can favor local employment and local development of skills. Because it's not that from Italy we are producing energy and we are giving to someone else, but everyone can produce his own, can generate competencies, can generate employment and empowerment locally. And of course, they have some sustainability values. that most of them are shared in general with the distributed economies that you saw before, but they have some intrinsic values. And to see them more in detail, we will make a comparison between the big plants that we have and that are like non-renewable and centralized. And we'll see the difference if we go for renewable and decentralized distributed. So in the first case, they are based on exhausting resources, so they are going to finish these resources, or otherwise we are going to destroy the environment to keep them. Then they have a lot of emissions, they have a lot of impact outside, and also they are not so efficient. So as I told you, they have transmission losses, so they are going to produce energy but less and less in time. On the contrary, like distributed renewable energy, they are based on non-exhaustible resources, they have lower gas emissions, and they have low environmental impact, because in that case we are keeping out some phases. For example, like the transportation, we are cutting this out. On the other hand, of course, they have some impact, because maybe like a solar panel is not producing any pollution during the use, but to make it, of course, we still have an impact. So we have also to consider this. We have not to say that like distributed renewable energy, they are fine and they are fair for everything. We have to be careful on this also. And then, since they don't move energy so far, they have low energy transmission losses. So this is about environmental sustainability of DRE. About socio-ethical sustainability, the big dimension plants, they have high cost, and transmission anyway don't allow everyone to have the energy. Because the fact is that, for example, in Uganda, they have a lot of production of energy due to a lot of dams that they are building. But the fact is, a lot of energy is going outside from the country. It's going to other countries or to the main cities. Like rural villages are not considered by anyone. So that is one part of big plant, because the transmission usually is a high cost part of this big plant. So this is still a problem. And then they have a great impact, a high impact in the local area, but usually they don't give benefit to the locals. They give benefit to someone else. So the locals have the problem of the impact and they don't receive even energy. Instead, like if we build small scale plants, they are usually used locally, so local people can benefit from this, and also they can increase their employment and working conditions. In terms of economic and technical sustainability, we have to consider that to build a big plant, we have a high capital that we need to have before, complex planning and monitoring, because, for example, about water, we build up a dam, we have a lot of water, but then the condition change, so we have this big plant, and what we can do with that? We have to destroy somewhere else to find the water and to put it there. And then they have a high life cycle cost and risk. Instead, if we have a small plant, the upfront cost is reduced, so it's more accessible for entrepreneur. System reliability and cost effectiveness, for example, for the fact that we reduce the transmission losses. And then it's flexible and resilient, because it's easy to install and to change it, so to adapt to a specific situation. It's more modular, instead to prevent like a big plant as a modular one is more difficult. Of course, even for distributed renewable energy, we have some barriers, especially in low and middle income contexts. For example, we have local gaps in technology, because it's still like they are like specific technologies. And they have gaps in operation and maintenance. And because of this, there is the need of trained people to become technicians for this technology and to manage also. Because several times they are used to just buy product and not to manage the whole value chain of the system. So they need to learn this. But I say they, but also us. In the case that we want to make here a system, we need to know how to manage it. And then also like another limitation is the fact of the limited purchasing power of people. Because of course, especially in low and middle income context, the purchasing power is really reduced. So in this sense, to support distributed renewable energy that by themselves are promising, we need some offer model that can support them. And for this reason came out the proposal of sustainable product service system applied to distributed renewable energy. So what is going on if I decide that I want to offer distributed renewable energy, but with a system that is supporting them? And so this was the proposal, the research hypothesis of the LENSIS project that was EU funded and that ended in October last year. So in this sense, as you said, there is the S.PSS model, so that move like from the selling of a product to the sharing the assets in our case of energy, for example. So the unit of satisfaction is going to be filled. What happens if we apply this to distributed renewable energy? It comes out that we can reach sustainable energy access for all. And it's something that is already happening, it's something that is already true, and it's something that can really empower locally sustainability to make things changes and to go towards sustainable development. But this is not just because it's something that we believe in sustainability, but because it's sustainable for economical, environmental, and socio-ethical reasons. To prove this, have been done this research, is European research of 3 years. A lot of case studies have been collected. A lot of evidences from outside have been collected. A lot of things are happening from around 2000. A lot of projects have been started to promote renewable energy, especially in low-income context. What have been found also is that if behind these proposals of distributed renewable energy, there is not a strong business model, there is not competencies in management, operation, and maintenance, and so on, these are going to start, but then they are going to fail. And also, like for example, there was this case in Botswana. They made it, was supported by the government and so on, but then it fails. Why? Because they didn't understood really what was the need of the community. Like if I propose, I don't know, like a big solar panel, this happened already also in Egypt. There was this nomadic population, they move every time. The government built up a big plant for them, distributed locally and so on, but then they move and the plant stay there. So that was like a good solution, but for the wrong problem. So you as designer, you have also to consider this, like be careful in considering for which context you are going to design. And something we did, we collaborate with around 30 small and medium enterprises related to energy in Africa in 4 different places, so Botswana, Kenya, South Africa, and Uganda during the last years. And we proposed them this new model. So we collaborate with them with the use of some tools, and some of them you are going to use them also in this course to understand if they were interested in the model, what they think about, if they think it's promising or not. And they told us that they never heard about it, that they didn't expect they can collaborate together and so on. Of course, even some difficulties raises, because for example, in one workshop they did they want to collaborate because they say, no, the idea is mine, I don't want my competitor to know it. So of course, it's something that is really new, it's something that we really, as designer, we have a role in, and we can really be part of this change and give give our support through our system design view that can be shared with them. Just to tell you something more really briefly, usually we did like a course with the companies with as a 1-week course, an intensive one. We explain them what is sustainable product service system, what is distributed renewable energy, and how can work if we combine them. Then we ask them to present themselves, their company, their actual business. We divided them in groups, so they work together to create a more sustainable business. So it was up to them to decide if they want to renew their existing business or if they want to start a new one. So they start to collaborate to know each other. They saw that they can exchange some competencies, something that they are already doing. They can do it together and so on. So it was something really interesting to see companies collaborating with the university. That is not something that happens so often. So just to tell you, in the end, talking about why S.PSS applied to the RE can be a win-win solution. We call it like that because it offers, as was before for the distributed economies, it offers access rather than the RE ownership. So the fact is that it's changing. We are not anymore bringing to low and middle income context products, but we are giving systems. We want to collaborate to create new systems that are working there alone. without anyone that has every time to support them. Then it covers the units of satisfaction rather than the DRE system ownership. Like this, similarly, is about like if I have to move to a place from a place to another, it's not true that I need a car. Maybe I can find other ways of transportation. Maybe I don't need even to go. I can just call the other person and we can have a call each other. And so we solve the problem even without moving. So it's to consider which is the correct unit of satisfaction. And then finally, it's favorable because it involves local rather than global stakeholders. So the fact is that everyone can locally build a thing, can locally build a system, can locally bring it working. Okay, so these are like the main win-win things, because this S.PSS applied to DRE can be considered a promising system. And this is true especially like for the customer, because if a person access to an S.PSS applied to DRE solution, there is no initial investment, but first access to energy is guaranteed. The running cost reduces the risk of drop-off, because if I have this solar panel, they are giving me the access to the solar panel, but I don't have to buy it. I just pay a fixed cost every time. If this became like if it's broken, I don't have to repay it all. I just have maybe to pay something more, or I don't have even to pay anything because I'm still paying a fix, and so like the broken things is covered. And also like there is the possibility for the customer to increase his own competencies. And also several times it happened, before you are a customer, then you became another entrepreneur locally. Then of course there are win-win potential also for the provider side, because with this, if an entrepreneur can cover all these first access people, of course a new market can be open. The fact of having the ownership, the fact that retaining the ownership means the fact that someone is going to pay you every time forever. So this means that maybe you don't regain the money immediately, but you still have an income every time for the rest of your life. And then the fact that if you go to provide like high quality product, so first time you have a bigger investment, you provide them, you retain the ownership. If they are high quality, for example, they can use less energy, so you can gain more because you use less energy. Okay, and then finally there is a win-win aspect for the environment also. So the use of DRE reduces the use of inexhaustible resources. If we have like high quality product, we need to produce less new product, so we have less impact. And then finally, if like a provider keep the ownership, of course they don't want to waste their product soon, so they are like retaining the ownership for a longer time.